to the One Room at a Time podcast. I'm your host, Atticus LeBlanc, CEO of PadSplit, and we're back for part 2 of our conversation with Todd Waller, a licensed clinical social worker who is also a current PadSplit member. Todd, thanks again for being here, and let's jump right back in and talk more about your experience and why you think PadSplit has been a good situation for your clients that you've helped find housing. One thing that stood out to me is just this idea of housing stress, and we left off the last conversation talking about how ultimately you're seeing a different population of folks come in, more folks that have jobs or are capable of getting jobs that are ultimately unhoused and can't overcome those barriers to entry, and then even those who are left out. Not just because of the rent itself, but extra costs like utilities, groceries, transportation, laundry, and part of this cognitive overload that comes with being under significant financial stress. And so one of the things that we push at PadSplit is this idea of all-inclusive. And you had hinted at this in our last conversation about utilities and Wi-Fi and furniture included. And so I want to understand from your perspective why that matters so much for working people today.
Yeah, sure. Well, I did mention Wi-Fi because to me that is a big deal, especially for the people that serve, the crisis center. We kind of take this for granted too. Wi-Fi is this tool that all of us use for the most part every day. It's also how we get jobs. It's how we get rides places with Uber, things like that. And I don't know about you guys. I've always had Wi-Fi. I couldn't imagine my life without it. But that's not all of us. And it's, again, another bill that causes stress in people's lives when they're already struggling with affordability. It's one of those things where you kind of have to have it. And it's like almost like a tax because you need it to navigate this world. And it can be pretty expensive sometimes for people. There's even deposits to have the little modem and everything brought to your house. So, it can be stressful and it's difficult to kind of navigate the world without.
Yeah. Well, not even just Wi-Fi, right? I mean, utility bills in general. And I mean, how often are people coming to you with just utility bill stress, whether it's heating, air conditioning, water, etc.?
Yeah. So I know people currently that don't use AC after Memorial Day, basically, because they said they'd love it, but because the AC has to run all the time in the summer, they cannot afford the bill. So I think that electric bills, water bills, all these bills are a big deal for a lot of people. People actually come to me all the time seeking kind of financial assistance with some of these bills because their water is going to get cut off or their electric's going to get cut off, and they're trying as hard as they can. Unfortunately, there are some opportunities for some financial assistance there, but it's few and far between, and people end up getting their power cut, basically.
Do you run into people often at the crisis center that are on Social Security income?
Yes, that often.
And just give us an idea, because I think a lot of people don't think about this. General range for people who, whether it's seniors or people on disability income, what kind of range of income is that?
Yeah. So most people who receive Social Security or disability income get the minimum, which is $994.
$994 per month total
per
income.
month.
So
total income.
Less than $12,000 a year.
Correct.
How does anybody expect that anyone is going to make a living off of that, or just survive?
Wild. It breaks my heart to kind of see a little lady come in, barely making ends meet, and you learn that she's making less. She's getting less than $1,000. I don't know how anybody survives.
Yeah, again, for the audience, especially people who aren't housers, typical underwriting would be 3-to-1 income to rent ratio. So
Correct.
You said $994. So basically $330 a month is the price of an apartment that person is going to qualify for. Uh,
Correct.
I am 46 years old. I've never seen an apartment that costs $330 a month. It struck me in 2009 when I first started kind of looking at rent by the room, and even today, it's unbelievable to think about that math and how anyone is able to make that work.
Mhm.
Particularly when you think about just the utilities, on
Yeah.
top of that, right? Like, not only do you have to find a place to live, and people expect that you're going to be able to find something other than a room, but then that you're going to have to pay all those other costs on top of that. How do people make it work if they do, or do they just not make it work?
No, I mean, a lot of people do try to make it work. It's just razor thin, right? Mm, Typically, for somebody who is on like disability income or Social Security income, there are some housing opportunities available for it, right? But the cost of that's about $850.
Hmm.
So that means for 1 month to live in, one of these homes that are kind of subsidized, they're they're only going to have about, you know, $140 left over.
$140 left.
And for that's food, taking
Everything.
MARTA,
Yeah.
doing all these things. But I think for most people, having a home is very important, and so they do spend that money. But
Hmm.
it's just tough, especially I think for our seniors, right? Because for many of them, asking them to go and get a part-time job, that is, I can't tell this man who just worked 50 years of his life doing X, Y, and Z, you know, you need to go get a part-time job in your golden years so that you can,
Yeah.
pay this last $50 for your rent or whatever.
You see it
That
regularly, though. I mean, I feel
all
like
the
more and
time.
more I see seniors in the workforce.
Well, then, like, I think there's two sad things that go on, especially with seniors. A is that senior living facilities themselves my population group is priced out of them, right? That's even beyond what just a senior housing facility would be. Mm. And then additionally, I think for seniors in particular, there are some like rent by the room specifically for seniors. From my experience, they are malicious.
Mm.
It is not. I don't trust them because I've had bad experience with these kind of, unofficial, rent a room in my.
Sure.
A lot of people in my community kind of hear about these places by word of mouth. They go there and they, one way or another, they end up getting screwed.
Yeah.
Kicked out of the home, their money's gone, whatever. That's one of the scariest parts of working with seniors is, okay, am I going to send them to a place where they're going to get taken advantage of?
Yeah.
I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to send somebody to a place I don't feel good about just because it gets them off the streets or, something.
Sure.
I want them to be in a place where they can be happy, healthy, and whole, not anxious, miserable, and scared.
How do you vet that on the PadSplit platform today? Is it the rating systems, or do you just know some of the hosts at this point?
I use the rating systems. And so it kind of depends on do you mean when I'm like kind of helping people
Yeah. Yeah,
identify
exactly.
places on
Like
PadSplit?
what gives you confidence when you're walking through the booking process with a client
Yeah.
to feel comfortable? Because ultimately, I mean, you have a vested interest here. They look at you as the person who's referring
Yeah.
them into this housing option, and so you've got a lot on the line personally, and you don't want to leave them hanging. So how do you make that determination?
Yeah, so the rating system is a great way. Also, PadSplit's pretty good about doing two things. A, like posting images of the home.
Mm.
But the other thing they do is provide, and this doesn't really do anything for hosts, but it provides a street view. So, it doesn't give you the exact address until you are approved for the room,
Yep.
but you can see the street view. So you can kind of know the neighborhood you're in a little bit. Know, is there a bus stop nearby? For the seniors I work with, they use MARTA mobility often to get to where they need to go. Can MARTA pick them up there, whatever. And we can learn all that just from, the pictures and the bio from the home. The other thing I kind of look at is how many people are in the home. If there's some homes that may have 3 or 4, there's others that might have more. If I'm working with a senior, I'm kind of hoping to put them in a home with other seniors, right?
Sure.
Maybe people 55 and older instead of in a home with 20. And I can, obviously I can't see the other people's ages on PadSplit, but there's pictures associated and I can kind of introduce them to their potential roommates, as we look at the
Definitely.
room, which I think is helpful, yes, you're going to move into this home with strangers, but here they are, look at them. They got,
Yeah.
they got their information out and everything. So,
I've got some 55 plus PadSplit homes personally. They're all in Fulton County. I'll definitely have to talk to you after the show.
you will. I
Some
wasn't aware of
referrals,
those.
Todd. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be great.
This idea of seniors is not something that I think a lot of people consider either. I love that the Golden Girls narrative has really been making its way around the country in terms of zoning reform. And only recently have people, I think, started to recognize that, wait a second, we have a big problem on our hand with just the number of seniors who are going to be on fixed income. And so, I mean, I know you had mentioned earlier that you had a story about a senior citizen as well, and yeah, just curious if you could share that experience or any others with us.
Yeah. So I had actually been working with the family for some time. They had a son who was a client of mine, and I do therapy at the crisis center, but my main job is kind of just help people get what they need, whatever that looks like. And so I was able to help the child who was my client, and I was just having a conversation with his grandmother who raised him. And I just kind of happened to say, is there anything you can need? Is there anything I can do for you? Because she had kind of been going through some troubling times with her child. And she just kind of started talking about, her bills. Things were coming due. She was kind of hinting with her, it seemed like she was kind of proud. She didn't really want to ask me to connect her to financial assistance and stuff. But what I was gleaning was she's behind on bills. He was living in like an extended stay hotel, basically, because she had spent so much money trying to help her kid over the years, trying to figure his life out, that she really just wasn't able to focus on herself. So she was in this bad living situation where she was paying like $400 a week to stay in this crappy hotel. And I just kind of ran it past her. I said, what is one thing that, if it changed tonight, and you woke up tomorrow, you're like, what would that thing be? And she just said, a stable home. And I said, I think I can help you with that, And I actually went to her home to help her do this. She's kind of frail. She's on in years, but I didn't take long with her. It took like 20 minutes. I introduced her to PadSplit. She would not have been able to find it without me. She's not a computer person, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And here we are sitting in this little efficiency hotel with the air conditioning humming, and she's looking at this room that has a bathroom, a private entrance, and it's $150 less a week than what she's paying at the hotel. And it was just like this weird little miracle that I happened to ask her if I could help her, because I'm helping her grandson, not her in this context. But I don't know, it just all kind of came together. So by the end of our meeting, when I went to her home, she had identified the house that she wanted. She had gotten approved for the home because PadSplit approves you like that, and she was planning to move in the next day.
Oh wow!
And she was almost in tears because the way that she was explaining it is that now the cost of her housing was going to go from about $1,200 to about $750. And just that additional money is going to just help her get food, right? It's going to help her still be able to kind of help support her son in his recovery. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then on top of it, she kept talking about how she can put money away that she can then like spend on a rainy day. And I thought you should have had this 10 years ago, because I think your life would be different. And she's still in a PadSplit home today. So
that's fantastic. How long has she been in there?
About a year. So it was about this time last summer that we did that together.
That. And you still keep up with her?
I do. Her grandson's doing good too. And so I check in with her about once a month. I try to go over there and say hi to her.
Okay.
We got to take care of our
Sure.
Her grandmother. But, when I go over there, it's so funny. She's built like a little garden, because she does have a private entrance to her house. And she's got like one of those raised bed plastic gardens that she's put tomatoes in and stuff. Oh,
man, and, that's awesome.
She's got lights that are strung up right outside of her door. So it's kind of festive, and she has made it her own. That's she beautiful. Keeps it clean. Everything looks good. From what I can tell, she is the grandmother to all of her roommates, you know what I mean? And just cooks for them, and so
She
not
got a
only did
home
she
and
get,
lots of grandchildren.
yeah, and she needed that social aspect of it
Yeah.
too, she needs people around her. That's good for her. And she's embraced it and she's doing good.
Oh gosh, I love that. Some of the pushback that I've gotten from neighbors is like, why single family? Why does this have to be in single family homes? And the practical reason is because there's just a lot more empty space,
Sure.
and there are literally tens of millions more empty bedrooms than there are people who need them, and the overwhelming majority of those are in single family neighborhoods. But
Yeah.
you're hinting at something else here, which is that when this grandmother was in an extended stay motel, which, oh, by the way, she probably ended up in because she couldn't afford the deposit for an apartment, uh, that now she's in presumably a single family neighborhood where she can actually garden, and
Yeah.
she's got the as my wife likes to say, the parenthood lights from the show.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's such a different environment in that sense, that is both lower cost, and I just, as I compare the idea of looking out onto a surface parking lot on a very busy road in probably a commercial, high traffic, high crime area versus like a single family home, or it sounds like she might be in an accessory dwelling unit or something, in the backyard. Just totally different experiences, and
Yeah.
should be obvious, I think, to anyone why you would choose one or the other.
You described it well, but the vibes compared to that hotel are just happy. She's just, I don't want to say she was depressed or anything in
Yeah.
that hotel, but I remember that the conversation I had with her that day when we found the PadSplit, it felt sad to me, because here I am showing up to this kind of seedy motel, kind of looking around a little, it's dark and paranoid,
Mm-hmm.
and here's this sweet little old lady, and it just did not feel good for her to be there. But now I visit her, there's grandma, you know what I mean? She's doing what she loves. She's cooking. She's calling her family on her phone. She's not bored, she's filling her day. And she has just like kind of energy for life again, because in my mind, she's not going into a dark hotel room, closing the blinds and just using it as a place to get off the streets. It's a home for her now.
That's fantastic.
Shit.
Well, Todd, for listeners hearing about PadSplit for the first time, what would you want the general public to understand, either from your personal background, from this story, or from your work as a social worker at the DeKalb Crisis Center? Like, what else haven't we shared that people should know?
Well, I think the biggest thing I would say is PadSplit is trustworthy. And what I mean by that is I've rented rooms and apartments before from private individuals. And as a tenant, you kind of go in there with that trust. And sometimes it's perfect, but sometimes you don't get the best end of the stick. You know what I mean? And maybe you are, rent increases and the landlord doesn't like to fix things. The cool part about PadSplit is that the tenants or the host, every host that I've experienced is very responsive. But in addition to that, you also kind of have PadSplit as a support. So I've called PadSplit and talked to them on the phone for different issues and stuff. And so it's like PadSplit is able to provide some sort of oversight to make sure that this is not just some dump that you're living in. This is not some slum. They're going to ensure that, right?
Mhm.
So every home that you go into has some requirements, I believe, if I'm correct, at
That's
PadSplit.
right.
And, some of those, all PadSplits have Wi-Fi, which is just this basic thing that everybody should have. When I recommend a PadSplit home, I'm recommending it both for safety and trust and for a good place to live. It's not this cheap, seedy, crappy motel just trying to make a buck off of me. I'm glad PadSplit is generating revenue for themselves, but they're doing this huge service for me too. Like I feel like I'm ripping you guys off. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm getting the deal. And that is a nice position to be in the housing market. I don't think I've ever been there before, and I've owned homes before and everything. I'll never go bad because, I get to have this awesome house that I feel like is mine. It doesn't feel like it's a PadSplit home. It feels like it's my place.
Yeah.
And then I always know that PadSplit's got my back. Should anything happen, if I really need to move, I don't have to go find like another apartment complex. I can talk to PadSplit, see if there's a place in that area, and move the next day.
Yeah, well, hopefully you don't even have to talk to us. You can just look at your app.
Look at the app, right? And find home. And I still look at it. I love my house now, but the grass is always greener, right? So I'm always looking. But I think that makes everything easier because the most stressful part of getting a new job or moving or anything is that actual moving, securing the home, paying the new deposits, everything like that. PadSplit, when you move, it's like you're moving without really moving because everything stays the same. The location just changes.
Well, I've often said that the idea, at least in part, was economic mobility without the required economics, and just giving people the freedom to move either across the street, across town, or across the country as opportunities arise or as their situations change. And I think it's like that level of mobility is really important. And you talked about the transparency, but the other piece of that is, because the members, the residents, now have the ability to move whenever they want, it forces those hosts to be much more accountable than they would be otherwise.
Capitalism has failed people like me in this housing business, right? Because what's happened is everybody wants a piece of the action, right? There's a fee for the background check. There's a fee for the application. Everybody wants their little piece. But PadSplit, this is capitalism done right? Because it's like you can have a business, but still do right by the people. You know what I mean? And that is, in today's housing market, is just the non-existent.
Yeah, the alignment of incentives has always been important. And on that note, as much as it may sound like it, this was not a paid advertisement for PadSplit.
It was not.
Yeah, for those of you listening, we literally just saw a review come through from Todd, referencing how many people he had referred and that he was a social worker. I'm like, I've got to talk to this guy. So, Todd, really, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for your story and for the 30 or so referrals that you've given with us, and sounds like many more that have been unofficial for your clients, and hope we can continue to be a resource for you and for them. But I talk about our results all the time, and hearing a story like yours firsthand is more powerful than any data that we can put out. So would love to stay in touch, think about other ways we can partner together, and definitely have some 55 plus units coming on board, where I'm anxious for more referrals from you. For our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or suggest a future guest. You can check out all of our episodes at padsplit.com/podcast. And thank you everyone for listening.